Shalom. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Rakha Kodash. I want to give double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, because those are the men who I learned this truth from through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai. Yahweh is the true name of the God of Israel. Yahushai is what the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, but his one and only true name is Yahushai. And pretty much in this lesson, I'm going to go over, the zodiac signs and constellations in the scriptures, because the constellations, the zodiac signs, the stars, the earth, the sun, the planets, it's not meant for Israelites to worship. It's meant for you to acknowledge the power of the Heavenly Father through his only begotten Son, Yahushua. Because when you read Colossians, the first chapter, you get a better understanding that really it was Yahushua through the will of Yahweh that created everything. So when you see how beautiful the constellations are, the stars are, when they align together, that's not meant for you to worship, all right? It's meant for you to acknowledge the Most High, to acknowledge Yahushua, not to worship the creation over the Creator himself. So without further ado, let me show you what I found, right? So I typed in constellations in the Bible, right? AI overview. It says, the Bible mentions specific constellations primarily in Job and Amos to illustrate the Most High's power as creator. All right, so that's what you need to understand. You got a lot of people, their spirits conform to the way of the heathen. When I say people, I'm referring to the children of Israel, because this is one of the biggest ways our people commit fornication and idolatry. They so in tune to astrology and zodiac signs, Oh, I'm born in this month, so my characteristics, it has to be like this. It's stupid, all right? It says, including Pleiades, Orion, right? And let me get the correct pronunciation of these names. 1 second. Waiting for the screen to load.
Arcturus. Arcturus.
All right. So those are the three stars, right? Which represent, it says the bear and Mazzaroth, the zodiac / southern constellations. These, along with the crooked serpent Draco, are highlighted as created by the Most High to mark seasons and to testify his glory. All right, so that's it with that. Now, I went on Google and I typed in Amos Astrologer's Bible, right? It's the AI overview. The book of Amos in the Bible is an Old Testament text focusing on social justice, righteousness, and the Most High judgment rather than astrology. But this is the key thing I want out of Amos, the 5th chapter, because this is the topic, right? While Amos 5 and 8 mentions constellations, he who made the Pleiades and Orion, this highlights the Most High's power as creator, not endorsing astrology. So that's what people need to understand. And see, that's the heathens' problem. The heathen nations, the 17 heathen nations, they worship the creation over the creator himself. But us as the Israelites, the so-called Negroes, Hispanics, Native American Indians, seed line, us, we have the privilege of worshiping the actual living God, the actual creator of all things. All right? So that's the difference. The Most High, he's dealing with the children of Israel, beginning with the elect. He gave us the laws, statutes, and commandments, which is our way of life, our culture, to live on the planet Earth, which elevates and separates us from the heathen nations. Because when you actually do your research on the customs of the heathen nations, they all have the same customs, just with a different name. It's all idolatry and fornication. It says, not endorsing astrology. The Bible generally condemns astrology as forbidden. Exactly. All right. So that's pretty much it. It says, let's read this. Amos 5 and 8, concerning Amos and the stars, right? It mentions the Most High as the creator of the Pleiades and Orion, turning midnight into dawn. It says context of astrology. In the biblical view, the Most High created the stars for signs, seasons, days, and years. And then they have Genesis 1 and 14. You can also read the book of Ecclesiasticus, known as the book of Sirach, chapter 43, verses 6 through 8. But the Bible warns against worshiping or seeking guidance from them. The them is referring to astrology in the parentheses. All right? So now let's get into it. So this is Amos chapter 5 at verse 18. It says, woe unto you that no, this is not it. Amos 5 and Amos 5 and 8. It says, seek him that maketh the 7 stars and Orion. Right? So you're not supposed to be looking for guidance according to the constellations and according to the stars or any form of witchcraft. You're supposed to seek Yahweh by seeking a prophet, right? Proof of that is 1 Samuel 9 and 9. In the ancient world, when they went to inquire, meaning they had questions about the Most High, they went to a seer, which now a seer is called a prophet. So that's how you seek the Most High, by seeking his prophets. And who's the prophets? The men of great millstone, as well as the men that teach exactly like us, word for word, and like mine. Not wavering, not changing the doctrine. Teaching as they was taught by the apostles of great millstone through Yahweh's blood of sacrifice. Seek him, Amos 5 and 8, that maketh the 7 stars and Orion, and turneth the shadow of death into the morning, and maketh the day dark with night, that calleth for the waters of the sea, and poureth them out upon the face of the earth. The Lord is his name. The word Lord is in caps, so it's telling you that Yahweh is his name. The YHWH, the tetragrammaton, which that word, it means the 4-letter word, is missing the ah sound. All right. So the name of the Most High is Yahweh. That's his one and only name. So now, let me read that in the NLT version as well. See, man, that's why I hate America, because it's just fucking loud. You know, just annoying nuisance noises. This is Amos 5 and 8 NLT. It is the Lord who created the stars, the Pleiades and Orion. He turns darkness into morning and day into night. He draws up water from the oceans and pours it down as rain on the land. Yahweh is his name. All right. Let's go to the next one. Now, this is Jeremiah chapter 10. I'm going to start at verse 1. The point is in 2. And this is pretty much key scriptures against not following the customs or believing on the philosophies of the heathen. All right. This is why we went to captivity. When you read about the children of Israel in the Old and New Testament, which was still in biblical days, we're still living in the days of the New Testament, right? Our problem is that we kept following the way of the heathen. You know, the Lord set up a Levitical priesthood for each of the tribes to have their priests in their land. But Israel, they want to follow the way of the heathen, so they want a king, right? That's our downfall. That's why we under the curses of Deuteronomy chapter 28, because you want to be like people that you're greater than. This is Jeremiah 10 and 1. It says, hear ye the word which the Lord speaketh unto you, O house of Israel. Who's the house of Israel? The seed of the promise, the children of Israel, right? The so-called Negroes, Hispanics, and Native American Indians. It says, thus saith Yahweh, because the Lord speaks through Jeremiah, just like he speaks to his prophets. So when the prophets say, thus saith the Lord, they're speaking through the Lord, literally, right? The Lord is speaking through them, giving you the message. Thus saith the Lord, learn not the way of the heathen. That's our problem. You want to learn their customs. You want to follow these pagan holidays. We got our own high holy days. We got our own way to tell time according to the moon. All right? The Sabbath comes in according to the new moon, according to the moon cycle. All right? When a new moon come in, that's the new month. That's when high holy days come in, depending on the particular month and day. That's how we determine the new year. But what do our people want to do? They want to be like the Edomite Greeks and the Edomite Romans, following pagan traditions, celebrating New Year and pagan holidays according to the heathen. Then you wonder why natural disasters be happening at Carnival and these different parades. People be getting killed during parades because you ain't supposed to be there. It's judgment from the Lord. It says, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven, like the constellations, all right? The Orion belt, the Pleiades, I forget the name that they call it, the North Star or Big Dipper, just shit like that. You don't need to follow that. It's there. The Most High created it, but you don't need to worship it and create a religion based off of it, right? And be not dismayed at the signs of heaven. Yeah, don't worship the stars. Don't worship the sun. See, that's another thing the heathens do. Even the pyramids, the way how the pyramids is set up is set up to worship the stars. Worship the moon, the sun, the constellations, the Orion belt. The Pleiades. The Most High tell us to follow and worship that according to the scriptures. He didn't tell the children of Israel to do that. If the heathen nations want to do that, let them do that. They're not chosen. They're not under no covenants. So it says, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven. Let me give you some examples of how the heathen are dismayed at the signs of heaven. The cobblestone. The cobblestone was like a comet or a rock that fell out the sky. But what did they do? They said that, the stone, it used to be white, but it turned black because it took on all the people's sins, all the followers of Islam, or all the followers of being a Muslim for that particular sect. They say that the stone, it turned black because it took on all the people's sins. So this is what people do. They start forming their religions and ideologies, different philosophies, right? And then it leads to pagan worship. So that's one thing that they do, all right? They do a whole bunch of things. It says, even concerning the earth. Now, we live in a geocentric model where the planets, the moon, the sun, it revolves around the planet Earth. That's the geocentric model. But the pagan model is the heliocentric model, to where even in the school systems, people think that the earth, it rotates, it spins, They think that the earth goes around the sun. That's heathen worship, that's sun worship, all right? That's that heliocentric shit that they teach in school. So that's how the heathen, they dismayed at the signs of heaven. And there's plenty of other things. It says, for the heathen are dismayed at them. Yeah, they so dismayed at them, they have formed their own religions and philosophies over it. So that's it. Let's go to the next one. So I went on Google. It's the AR overview. And I typed in Jeremiah verse 2, AR overview. It says, warns against adopting the idolatrous customs of the surrounding nations, heathen/Gentiles, and fearing astrological signs in the sky, which those cultures found terrifying, right? It says, which those cultures found terrifying, it instructs the Most High's people, which is the Israelites, to avoid following pagan practices, emphasizing that the ways of the nations are futile, vanity, or worthless. So that's what you need to understand. The Most High, he gave the children of Israel, when you read Deuteronomy, the 4th chapter, right, verses 5 and 6, he gave us our wisdom and that did not include astrology and being dismayed at the signs of heaven. See, when you go outside of keeping the law, statutes, and commandments and having faith upon YASHARAHLA, then you got to deal with the consequences for your disobedience, pursuant to Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter. All right. So the heathens, their culture is futile, vanity, and worthless. It says key aspects of Jeremiah 10 and 2. It says, learn not the way of the heathen / nations, right? The 17 heathen nations. Don't be like them. It says, this is a call to avoid pagan, this is superstitions. Yeah, so what you notice is a lot of these holidays, it has an origin to it. Not just ancient Rome, ancient Greece, but ancient Babylon. That's where these holidays come from. A lot of these pagan traditions. And excuse me, I'm walking on some ice, still some dry ice. But that's where a lot of these pagan holidays and pagan customs originate from. Ancient Babylon. The Babylon that was ruled by Nimrod. Right? So it says, be not dismayed at the signs of heaven. It warns against fearing astrology, eclipses. Now, eclipses in the scriptures, right? But you don't worship it, though. You don't form a philosophy, religious rituals off of that. The moon is for signs and wonders. That's it. It ain't meant for you to worship and form a philosophy and religion off of it. All right? It's there for the times and seasons. That's it. It says, which pagans view as terrifying signs of divine activity. Exactly. It says context. All right, so that's it with that. I don't need that. So now let's go here. I typed in astrology in the Bible, right? The Bible generally condemns the practice of astrology. It says, viewing it as a form of forbidden divination, idolatry, and violation of trust in the Most High. And see, this children, let them do it. They're not chosen. They're not the seed of the promise. If they want to be pagans, let them be pagans. They're naturally pagans. All right. It says, while celestial bodies, referring to the stars, the planets, right, are recognized as signs for seasons and proofs of the Most High's power, Psalms 19:1, which I got that on deck, relying on stars for guidance is explicitly condemned. Notably in Isaiah 47, verses 13 to 14, I got that. And Deuteronomy 18, verses 10 to 12, I got that as well for the lesson. Key biblical views on astrology. Condemnation. Against worshiping or interpreting the hosts of heaven, stars, planets, sun, moon, associating it with pagan practices and demonic influence. Divination prohibited. It says astrology is classified alongside sorcery and witchcraft, which a lot of these women, they're super pagans. The black woman, she's a super pagan. The Latina woman, she's an even bigger pagan. All right? Most of these so-called Latino women, no matter which tribe it is, they got tattoos. Their whole lifestyle and family is rooted in fucking paganism, man. In their calves, it's like you want to burn that shit down because they got fucking Saint Mary there, right? They wear those fucking rosary beads. I hate seeing that shit, but they don't know no better. But they in their ignorance because people don't take time to like do research and understand the origin of things. They just follow things because this is how everybody else does it. Do the research. That's what the Bible says, St. John, the 4th chapter. He worshiped, he know now what. And he was talking to a heathen woman, the Samaritan woman. That was a heathen, all right? More than likely, she was a Cushite. Ye worship, ye know now what. For the true worshipers is going to worship the Father in truth and in spirit. A lot of you are stupid. It says, Leviticus 19:26, which I'm not sure if I got that lined up, states, ye shall not interpret omens or tell fortunes. Yeah, fortune telling. The fuck you going to a fortune teller for? A fortune teller don't know shit. The future is recorded in the scriptures. That only the prophets through the Holy Spirit, through Yahweh's blood and sacrifice, can interpret. I'm no fucking fortune teller, unless you want to be extorted. It says Babylonian connection. Astrology is heavily criticized in the context of Babylon, Isaiah 47, right, verses 13 to 14, where Daniel, chapter 2, verses 27 to 28, shows Daniel discrediting astrologers. Yeah, like I'm doing right now, who could not interpret the king's dream. Yeah, here you supposed to be these people that got this high-ass status in the Neo-Babylonian Empire, and you can't even break down your own king's dream at the time, Nebuchadnezzar. But Daniel was able to do it through the power and will of the Most High God of Israel, Yahweh, right? It says the Magi in Matthew the 2nd chapter, right? The wise men are sometimes cited as practitioners of stargazing, but the text focuses on their worship of Yahweh, not their endorsement of horoscopes. It says purpose of stars. It says the Bible states stars are meant to declare the Most High's glory. That's it. Not for you to worship. You got to worship the person that made the actual thing, not the thing itself. The thing didn't have power to just exist and form, but the Most High does. It says, it serves as signs not to determine human fate, as noted in Genesis, the 1st chapter, verse 14, and Romans chapter 1, verses 18 to 23. It says, in contrast to looking to stars, the Bible encourages trusting in Yahweh and Yahweh for you Israelites for guidance and future rather than interpreting. All right? Let's keep it flowing. Psalms 19 and verse 1. This is Psalms chapter 19, verse 1, dealing with what? The works and the word of the Most High. It says, Psalms 19 and 1, to the chief musician, a psalm, meaning a song of David, because the Psalms, just like the apostles always bring out, these things were sang, right? To the chief musician, a psalm of David. The heavens declare the glory of Yahweh, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. Let's read that in the NLT version. This is Psalms 19 and 1. So this is an example of what? King David, which, by the way, when you read Ezekiel, the 36 and 37 chapter, that's going into the new covenant, King David is going to be king over Israel forever underneath Yahweh, right? And the Most High. King David is what? He's giving praise to the Most High. He's acknowledging that what? The handiwork of the Most High, which is creation, the stars, stuff like that, that is beautiful, but he's giving praise to Yahweh for it. He's not worshiping it, all right? This is why I'm reading it. This is Psalms 19 and 1 NLT version. It says, for the choir directed a psalm of David, the heavens proclaim the glory of Yahweh, the skies display his craftsmanship. All right, it's the Most High's craftsmanship. That's who you worship. You worship the actual creator, not the creation. The creation ain't have power to just exist and make itself. You got to acknowledge the person that designed it, designed the color, the noise it make, how it functions, how powerful or how weak it is, how unique it is. All that comes from the Most High, right? The Most High Yahweh, through Yahweh. This is Deuteronomy chapter 18 and verse 9. It says, and when thou art come into the land, what land? The promised land of Israel, that was given unto our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the promised land of Israel, that you read about in Genesis, the 15th chapter. It says, when thou art come into the land which Yahweh thy God giveth thee, so that's our inheritance as the Israelites. It says, thou shalt not learn to do after the abominations of those nations, right? There shall not be found among you anyone that maketh his son or his daughter to pass through the fire, or that useth divination, or an observer of the times, or an enchanter, or a witch, or a charmer, or a consulter with familiar spirits, or a wizard, or a necromancer. It says, for all that do these things are an abomination unto the Lord, and because of these abominations, the Lord thy God, which is interpreted as Yahweh thy God, doeth drive them out from before thee. So remember what the Lord said concerning the curse of Ham, which the curse of Ham, it didn't fall on the actual man named Ham, which was one of Noah's sons. It fell on the Canaanites. All right, all them different Canaanite tribes that you read about in Deuteronomy the 7th chapter. All right, it fell on them. Why? Because they was doing a lot of evil in the land. They was doing a lot of abominations, a lot of witchcraft, a lot of sorcery and paganism. They was doing a lot of fornication. They was doing a lot of evil. So once their iniquity built up, then it was time for Joshua and Caleb to take the promised land of Israel, because it never really belonged to them. They was just dwelling there, right? So it says, yep, and because of these abominations, the Lord thy God doeth drive them out from before thee. Let's read that in the NLT version. This is Deuteronomy 18 and verse 9. And it says, a call to be holy. It says, when you enter the land the Lord your God, Yahweh our God, is giving you, be very careful not to imitate the detestable customs of the nations living there. Right? Talk about the Canaanites. Don't be like them. Don't be like the Egyptians. It says, for example, it says, never sacrifice your son or daughter as a burnt offering, right, to Molech. Modern day Molech worship is Planned Parenthood concerning abortions, right? It says, and do not let your people practice fortune telling or use sorcery or interpret omens or engage in witchcraft. So this is what the children of Israel are forbidden to do. And this is why the heathen nations, they can never inherit the promised land of Israel. Because when they in the promised land, look at the examples in 2 Kings, the 17th chapter, from verses 24 on down. The land will be given to paganism. All right? So continuing on, it says, or cast spells or function as mediums or psychics, which King Saul, he was guilty of this. It says, or call forth the spirits of the dead. King Saul was guilty of this, right? It says, anyone who does these things is detestable to the Lord. It is because the other nations have done these detestable things that the Lord your God will drive them out ahead of you. All right? So we ain't supposed to be into astrology or any form of witchcraft. So this is what I typed in on Google. I typed in astrologer's Bible, right? It says, the Bible consistently condemns astrology as a pagan practice of divination, prohibiting the worship of celestial bodies, the planets, the sun, moon, and the use of horoscopes to predict the future. While Babylonian astrologers are portrayed as powerless to interpret dreams, Daniel the 2nd chapter, the wise men, Magi, who visited Yahushua are sometimes interpreted as practicing a form of celestial observation. It says key biblical references to astrologers. It says Babylonian astrologers. Daniel chapter 1 verse 20, Daniel chapter 2 verse 27. King Nebuchadnezzar's astrologers, magicians, and enchanters were unable to interpret his dream, highlighting the superiority of Daniel's God, which is Yahweh, given wisdom. Because Daniel was able to interpret it by the will of the Most High, by the power of Yahweh, not because of how great or how smart Daniel is. The wisdom comes from Yahweh, right? And you got Israelites, they make that mistake. Like, oh, I did this, I did that. No, you didn't do shit. You got the wisdom from the Most High through Yahushua. If Yahushua was never resurrected and died for our sins, even the elect wouldn't have this wisdom. So it says, yep, the Magi / wise men, Matthew the 2nd chapter, verses 1 through 2. These figures from the east observed a star which led them to worship the infant Yahushua. It said judgment on astrologers, Isaiah chapter 47, verses 13 through 14. Scripture warns that those who consult the stars and astrologers will be consumed like stubble, highlighting the Most High judgment on these practices, right? It says biblical stance on astrology. Forbidden practice. Astrology is classified under divination, which is strictly prohibited. And I just read that. And then it says Leviticus 19:26. It says idolatry. The Bible considers the worship of or reliance on celestial bodies to be a form of idolatry, often resulting in divine judgment on the nation of Israel. And that's in 2 Kings, the 17th chapter. That's what the northern kingdom was guilty of. That's why they got kicked out the land first. All right. Continuing on. It says counterfeit wisdom. The Bible teaches that true wisdom and future knowledge come from Yahweh, not the movement of stars or planets. All right. Let's keep it going. Got a little bit more left. Now, this is concerning Babylon the Great, all right, which is America. This is Isaiah chapter 47 and verse 13 and 14. Isaiah chapter 47, verse 13. It says, thou art wearied in the multitude of thy counsels. Let now the astrologers and stargazers, the monthly prognosticators, stand up and save thee from these things that shall come upon thee. Behold, they shall be as stubble, the fire shall burn them. They shall not deliver themselves from the power of the flame. There shall not be coal to warm at, no fire to sit before it. Let's read that in the NLT version, right? NLT, Isaiah 47, 13 and 14. It says, all the advice you receive has made you tired. Where are all your astrologers, those stargazers, who make predictions each month? Yeah, like they got this shit, Nostradamus predictions, like if he's a prophet. But Nostradamus, he was an Israelite though. I remember Apostle Gabal brought it out and I did the research on it. Nostradamus, probably pronounced his name wrong, I don't care. You could get the correct pronunciation from Google. But he was actually a so-called black man. All right. Continuing on, it says each month, let them stand up and save you from what the future holds. And then I even want to say this, even when you're watching these movies or cartoons like The Simpsons, right, that you know, they have predictive programming, like they could predict the future and oh my god, that prediction on The Simpsons came true. No, everything is predestinated through the will of the Most High. So even though these Freemasons, Skull and Bones, secret societies, you know, they put their New World Order agenda, they leak their plan in comedy or movies or cartoons, right? Different TV series shows. It's predestination through the will of the Most High. When you read Ephesians, the 1st chapter, and all throughout the Bible, there's no such thing as free will. So they're not predicting anything, all right? All that is biblical. So it says, but they are like straw burning in the fire. They cannot save themselves from the flame. You will get no help from them at all. Their hearth is no place to sit for warmth. So nothing could save Babylon the Great. Now, this is why I typed in Job Astrology Bible, AI overview, right? It says, the book of Job, chapter 38, verses 31 through 33, mentions constellations like Pleiades, Orion, it says Arcturus, and Mazzaroth to illustrate Yahweh's supreme power over the universe, not to endorse astrology. It says, instead of guiding human fate, these celestial bodies demonstrate the Most High's sovereignty. And then it says Bible verses like Bible verses like Deuteronomy 18 and Isaiah 47 forbid using stars for fortune telling. Job chapter 38 verses 31 through 32, Yahweh challenges Job by asking if he can bind the sweet influences of Pleiades, loose the bands of Orion, or God Mazzaroth, often interpreted as the Zodiac, right? Context. These verses highlight Yahweh's control over the stars' movements, which are too complex for humans to manipulate, emphasizing divine authority. It says Bible's perspective on stars. While the Bible acknowledges stars as signs for seasons and days, right? Genesis chapter 1, verse 14, it condemns using them for divination, omen reading, or predicting personal fate. All right? So there you go. So that's it with that. So this is the book of Job, chapter 9, and verse 9. It says, let's see. I'm just getting to the point. Job 9 and 9. Which maketh Arcturus, Orion, and Pleiades, and the chambers of the south. All right. So let's read that in the NLT version. So this is Job chapter 9, verse 9. Referring to the Most High, he made all the stars, the Bear, and Orion, and Pleiades, and the constellations of the southern sky. All right. Most High did that. You look at the different constellations, and it looked like an animal. Most High did that. He getting crafty. This is Job chapter 38, verse 31. It says, "Can thou bind?" This is the Most High communicating with Job. "Can thou bind the sweet influences of Pleiades, or loose the bands of Orion? Canst thou bring forth Mazzaroth in his season? Or canst thou guide Arcturus with his sons? Knowest thou the ordinances of heaven? Can thou set the dominion thereof in the earth?" Let's read that in the NLT version. So this is meant for you to acknowledge the power of the Most High that created these beautiful things, right? NLT version, Job 38 and 31. "Can you direct the movement of the stars, binding the cluster of the Pleiades, or loosening the cords of Orion? Can you direct the sequence of the seasons, or guide the bear with her cubs across the heavens? Do you know the laws of the universe? Can you use them to regulate the earth?" Only the Most High can do that. Only YAHWEH can do that. All right? So that's pretty much it. The Most High is against any form of divination, fornication, idolatry. He's against that. All right, worshiping the sun, the moon, the heliocentric model. He's against all that shit. Modern day science, he's against that because it's pseudo. So Lord willing, you was edified by the lesson. Shalom.